Good afternoon, good day, good night, whatever time it might be for you guys. Welcome back to the Nebraska Farm Series. I am your host, the Rental Man Buck. We got a lot of stuff to go over in our latest episode today. I want to welcome you guys back. Let's get the intro started and I'll explain what we got to do. While unloading water into the garden, you guys can see it looks dead, but that's because I'm swapping the crops and we're going to start doing stuff with some solid fertilizer. I forgot to start selling the stuff, so that entire garage is just full of produce. Hence the reason to see, like, you know, stacked up against the wall. But if you guys remember that old Ford flatbed truck that I had that sits between sits in the machine shed that you could see in between the garage and the regular shed, we're going to pull that thing out and do a little bit of a motor swap. I got to get some practicality out of that truck because I've been fighting to find reasons to even use the thing, and I believe I have the perfect job for it. The other big thing to note is that we have finally started the deconstruction of my grain bin site. We're going to be keeping 3 of the main bins. We're going to work on that central hub system in the middle, though. I'll explain a little bit more once we get over there. But for the meantime, we're going to head over to Daryl's quick to check on the straw operation because we finished up all of the harvest of the straw. The combines are getting cleaned out. We're going to have to Andy clean the suckers, but the baling has started and there is a lot of work to do. We're going to have a lot of streaming content. This bin site I feel is going to look absolutely amazing. We're just going to have to sift through the remainder of the grain that I already have and get the corn that's in that far bin dried out, which is 17 more truckloads, and put it into this dry bin. We're keeping these 3 bins and we're going to work on tearing this whole part out in the middle. If you guys would love to see more Nebraska on the channel, be sure to possibly consider smashing that like button, maybe even subscribing down below. We are on that race to 100,000 public subscribers by the end of this year. We did get all of our herbicide spraying done, so we have nothing but clean beans till every single day of the week. Still working on purchasing that Demco from the Fair Oaks farm. It's $42,000. We did get quite a bit of money as we've been selling a lot of grain. We've also sold the main portion of the scrap metal from the bins. And I have officially decided that how I'm going to do my sprayer situation, because we still have not bought that 4045R from Deere. We're going to lease it for a year, and then I'm going to buy out the rest of that lease so we can own the sprayer, but we'll wait till this coming spring to pay off the remainder of that balance. Now, the reason we're not doing any baling today, or at least this afternoon, is it's already been pretty wet. We've gotten a couple showers, and as you guys can see, coming up a little bit, probably sometime around noon, clouds are going to start rolling in, and we got a couple chances of some scattered showers and thunderstorms. We don't want to get anything stuck. We don't want to get spontaneous combustion with our crops. So all the stuff has been parked where it is at. I just want to make sure that we are indeed prepped for said storms in case things were to get bad. We already did all the outskirt bales and we're starting to work on the passes. The real question was, where did I leave this thing? I think it might be on this side of the field. I think yieldage wise, this was pulling 2 bales a row, and we got like almost 40 or 50 bales already just in what we've done. So if watching us do some baling content interests you guys, be sure to stop by the streams throughout the week on TikTok, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, for a chance to watch us do some baling action with the 4320. And we'll definitely need to get some of the world's greatest farm soap on this. So guys, if you haven't already checked out Andy Clean, be sure to go check out Andy. He's an awesome guy. I'll definitely be with him at the Farm Progress Show at the end of the month of August over in Boone, Iowa. So stop by the John Deere booth, say hello to me and Andy, and we would love to sit and chat with you. The reason we are heading over to Tractor Supply is I'm getting rid of that Z-Track mower that I got from Deere. I wanted to try and invest in something that I feel is going to be a lot more useful versatility-wise, so I looked in and found myself one of those 2019 Swishers. You guys probably have seen this between me and Square 2448. It is that black front-mounted deck mower. I'm going to be investing in both the rough cut and the finish cut deck. The rough cut's going to be really good for getting around the farm in some of those hard to reach spots by getting rid of some of that nasty brush before it kind of gets out of control. It's a 51-inch deck and a 66-inch deck. You can't really go wrong. Plus, I hate to say it, it's cheaper than the Deere and it's a 3-part package. I want you guys to head down to the comment section once again. Let me know down below if you guys have worked on some sort of a farm vehicle, whether that be a restoration or physical repair that you have to do. What was that? I've had to work on, obviously, my little Project 56, being the tiny little John Deere 56 lawnmower. Nothing too fancy, but, you know, an engine swap's an engine swap, and it definitely has its fair share of mechanical labor. Let me know, though. I'm kind of curious, what kind of projects have you guys worked on? Let's get the Swisher unloaded, and I think, I'm trying to remember, that truck does not run. I know that for a fact, but I have a recovery rope somewhere. It might be either in that shed or the seed shed that we can yank the truck out with, and once we get it out in the open, I can just push it with the skid steer and the bucket. Let's see, do I have a rope in here anywhere? For starters, there's the truck. It's honestly, it's rough, but it's a good place to build from. I think we might be able to at least salvage the cab. Doesn't look like we need to do a whole bunch of sheet metal fabrication. But as you guys can see, it's not going to run. It's got fuel in the tanks, but that's old fuel. We're not going to use any of that. I don't see any ropes back there. There's our seed boxes. Oh, there it is. Found it. Let's get the first thing and just have this attached to the frame. Need to have this go back down. And it says yank this way, meaning this side, I believe, attaches to the front end of the truck. But we need to get the Kubota over here first so we can attach everything. I know you could buy them, but we welded up one of those adapter plates you can use to move the trailers around. And I don't use this thing very often, but this will be a great use to be able to pull this thing out. The motor we're going to be putting in this thing, you guys saw in the title, it's a 534 Ford industrial motor, but it's from a boat. So these motors were only put in, they're like big pleasure luxury boats from the 1960s. I think it was a Seamaster Chris something. I can't remember exactly, but to my knowledge, those motors are not the most easy to find, but it's a good enough scrap motor I got for like $200 on Big Iron Auction out of O'Neill, Nebraska, so I couldn't really pass it up. I mean, it was cheap. Oh, come on, Kubota, you got the power to pull this thing, don't you? Give it a little bit of a tug. I think it's got the power to do it. Maybe it doesn't? Lift it up. Oh, hang on. It's rolling, you can see it. Jeez, I wouldn't think we'd need to, but maybe we need to call in a heavier truck. If this thing can't pull it out, we're going to have some problems. Because the only other thing that I might be able to fit in here is possibly like an 8R. Alright, put it in low. I'll show you who's boss. There it goes. There it goes. We can't even turn the wheel on this thing. Maybe if I yank it hard enough, we can get it to turn. It is just not having it. It is not having it in the slightest. Can you please work with me for like 4 seconds, please? That might be nice. Much as I don't really want to hit anything, I believe the only way we're really going to get this thing out, because farm sim physics are just great farm sim physics, we're going to get out the big boy and say screw everything of logic. Come on, Deborah. Call in the dogs and put out the fire. I think we're going to find ourselves a new champ.
You need tires, you idiot!
As long as I don't completely just utterly destroy the frame of this truck. I mean, I guess they didn't say build Ford tough. There it goes. Oh, hello. Come on. Go this way. Go this way. This way. Now, Ford, let's rethink our life choices before we start taking out the walls of my shed. That'd be very, very nice of you. There we go. Now she's starting to be a little less stubborn. Look at that paint. That paint has seen a lot better days. That is definitely certain. I'm gonna work on dragging this thing up to the main shop, and then we can start tinkering around, and they'll show you guys this motor. It's sitting on a pallet. Yeah. That's how you get it done. I knew that thing still had a use for something. Alright, let's turn off some fuel wasting things, because I don't really want to have to pay for all the bills. Looking at this thing from the roughest point possible, we got that 534 big block sitting under the canopy of that cab. What I think I might be able to do with... we're going to have to take off that cab. It just bolts on the hinges. I'm going to take parts off of that motor that are still good and work on it by putting them on this. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're definitely going to see. There's someone else that's also used a marine motor and made a vehicle run. That would be Junkyard Digs. He did it with, I believe, a 302 in an F1 or F250 that was like 1972. It was a boat motor, but this is a little bit bigger. But once we are able to get that motor inside the frame of this and get it running, this truck is going to be transformed into one of those propane bobtail trucks. But I have a backside that I can get for this specific frame that fits, and I'm going to take off this flatbed. I don't need the flatbed. But we have to get the motor running first. So I'm going to work on getting the cab of the truck off so we can start working on the motor removal and then putting that parts motor with all of its makeshift parts taken from the previous one that's already in it, and we can see if we can get this motor to fire. If none of that made sense, I'm going to make the motor run and drive. Que prende? Now, I'll be honest here, I don't know the exact differences between the marine version of an engine and the industrial, or aka the automotive version of an engine. So if you guys would like to go check out that video from Junkyard Digs to learn the differences, please feel free to click that link up in the top right. This is just an interpretation of what he ended up doing for that. So here is our lovely new motor. I got a lot of work to do. Daryl and Dan are going to help me get this cab off, and we should have enough hands to get the motor out as well. It's pretty straightforward because, you know, all this old stuff, there's hardly any electronics involved. It's all mechanical. But we'll get started on taking apart the cab so that way we can get the engine in. Then we will see you guys in just, hopefully not like 3 days, just hopefully it's a couple hours.
3 hours later.
With the motor now successfully removed, they're going to start working on trading off all the different parts. I do notice that I'm going to have to piece a few parts out from a salvage yard. We had a couple connecting rods that just weren't looking so hot between both motors, so I had to get those ordered. But the majority of the motors were able to cross over between the two. I'm going to also start working on getting the flatbed off the truck. But we're also cleaning the frame up with Andy Clean, just trying to make sure we can make this as clean of a process as possible. Well, of course there's an engine malfunction. There's not even an engine in it. With those bolts now loosened up, let's get the frame off the chassis. I do already have an interested buyer who's looking to turn his own truck into a flatbed. Of course, this thing is going to be an absolute nightmare to get off. Why would anything be easy? With the bed now removed, we're going to set it over by our for sale stuff. We do already have an interested buyer who's been looking to turn his old tanker truck into a flatbed truck. This one fits the dimensions he's looking for, so that'll be a nice little bit of chunk change that we already can get. In addition to the augers and that direct drive PTO that's sitting over there. I did not realize how heavy these beds were, though. For crying out loud, this thing's taking everything it's got to lift it up and over. Let's check how they're doing with that boat motor. Ah, yes. New powertrain has been installed. I know it looks like the same motor, but please, just picture that the right motor's in there. Work with me here. I do still need to mount a couple different things. Even though this is a marine motor, it still does have the mounts for automotive stuff, like the alternator being in a different spot. We also had to do a different intake route because they were completely... I mean, it's weird. A boat motor is not exactly the same as a truck motor. It's not. But with about $1,400 in parts installed between the purchase of the motor and our fluids and excess whatever shenanigans, let's throw some oil in it, get a new battery, and try out our secondary fuel system because we still are waiting on the replacement fuel tank for this. Can we get it to turn over is going to be the real question. I'll take it. I mean, it don't sound great, but it works, doesn't it? Shifter still seems a bit sticky. Let's see if we can get the thing into gear and move it around. Well, it moves under its own power. That's a plus. Do we have brakes? We do not have brakes. Great. Just what I wanted to hear. We'll wait on that extra fuel tank. I'm going to get the combines cleaned out. We'll get everything organized so we can get this in the shop before the next storm comes through. And we might also go and mow the yard. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
The next day.
Got the combines all cleaned out. They are set to go in case we need to do any contract work. But I haven't decided if I'm going to get involved with that yet. Our fuel tanks are supposed to arrive later this afternoon. So we can get that up and installed. So this thing's running on its own fuel. I'm going to do the cheapest white rattle can paint job on this thing you guys have ever seen. I already got on order a bobtail propane tank, so that way we can get this thing fitted with that. We are going to have to get this thing certified to be able to pull one of those trucks, because who knows whether or not this truck's going to be able to pass safety standards. We are going to work on the brakes later this afternoon, so the brakes will be up and working, the fuel tanks will be up and working, and it'll look like it was a Dollar General paint job. Nice. White rims, white cab, white, yeah. Start by doing the wheels. By the power of camera magic, I present to you 4 very badly done white wheels. In all fairness, it actually didn't turn out that bad. Definitely gonna have to do a couple more coats though. See you guys when this thing looks maybe half decent.
One terrible paint job later.
I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with my results. It'll definitely peel off in orange peel like 2 months from now, but we're not gonna talk about that. I think that actually turned out to look pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie, we did at least put a little bit of time into it. We taped off all the chrome. The rest of the body's pretty straight. We got a couple real big dings and dents and just it wasn't really worth it to fix them. This is not really supposed to be a fully restored, pristine factory showroom. But I at least wanted to give it the level of respect that it deserved. We got our toolboxes to be back up and open again, even kind of sprayed inside of there to help stop the rust. It's about as clean as it's going to get in this truck, so I'll work on getting all the brake work done, just putting on some new drums and shoes. Then it's off to getting that fuel tank on, and this thing should be ready to go for its bobtail to arrive sometime midweek. Until then, though, we're going to cue you guys a little bit of a time lapse. We don't have anything to do until the parts arrive, so we'll go out and mow with the brand new Swisher around the house. We'll get old Freddy back up and running. Now we're looking spiffy, sharp, and most importantly, I missed a spot in the ditch. But yesterday we ended up making a little over $3,800, about $3,850 is what we settled on for the sale of our flatbed. So that is officially done. The parts truck reads that it's going to be here in about 30-ish minutes or so. Then after that, I hope we'll see you guys back when we can get the bobtail on the back of this truck so you can really see in full force what this awesome looking propane truck's going to be like.
A few moments later.
I can't tell you how good this thing actually turned out, guys. We just went and ran into town, got the bobtail installed. We have our papers from the courthouse that this thing is officially ready and road legal. Welcome to the brand new Ready, the Ford, our propane truck for the farm. That was a horrible way to say that, but it's the propane truck that we're going to be using for the Nebraska Farm Series from here on out. I really like the way this thing turned out. It looks really, really good. And I think it'll make a great addition to the fleet, because then I could also quote-unquote custom haul propane out for others in around the area, and we could make some money on it. But it turned out really, really nice, and I really can't thank the people that were involved in this project enough. In the meantime, we need to run down to the co-op, get ourselves a load of propane though, because that dryer is currently low on fuel. We also need to get the grain truck out and start shifting over the crop from the wet bin to the dryer and get it to the dry bin so we can start selling this grain off. Our trucks are sitting empty and we got to make some money so that way we can start investing in this grain bin site. Going up in the drone, I want to show you guys what we plan to do with this. We're going to keep these 3 bins. The way I have this situated out is this far bin will always be my soybean bin. This bin will be my dry corn bin, and then this bin is our wet corn. In the middle, we're going to have a 2-bin connected system that will also be storage, whether that might be corn and soybeans. It just kind of depends on what we have for yieldage. But when we go to our silos, I'll show you a rough 3D layout of what this is like. We have 2 SU bins that will go right there. And our output shafts will be coming straight out, and we can unload them from the front, but we have to have it load from the top left. The dry bin, however, used to be our Brock dryer, which is $150,000. When we sell that thing, it's going to be worth $67,000, as that's the best I'm going to be able to get for it. But to replace it is a 25,000 bushel soak-up bin that has the ability to dry the corn in itself. That way we don't have to have that hopper bottom system that would go from the hopper bottom and distribute it to the top. It's less bins, less mess, and we don't have to have all of those really weird systems. It's gonna cost me in total about $200,000 to do the project, but I'm going to try and get ahead on my finances first before we start dumping all that money into there. We obviously don't have any grain to pull out of the field yet, but I need to get this bin site done before harvest starts so that way we can make sure that we have adequate storage to store our grain. We do still have that GSI bin that sits on the north side of the farm along with the overflow that we can dump it into, but the less corn that we can dump on the ground, the better. Let's start by getting fuel to the fire so we can get that grain all dried out. Then we can get the new bin construction started and go from there. This save has always been a numbers game because I try not to cheat as much as I can. When I used to go and get propane for the farm and I had to rent it from the co-op, it would cost me almost $400 to get the truck rented and get the propane delivered. Now that I take that extra like $400 out a truckload and it's just the cost of the propane, over time I feel that's going to be a really great financial decision. Plus we can charge other people to truck propane out for them. Considering propane really isn't that expensive on this map, we'll fill up the truck and we're just going to keep using every last ounce that is in there so we don't have to keep coming back. Now off to getting some of that grain dried. I just find it fun that we finally got a use for this truck again. It just sucked that it always sat in the back of that shed and we never did anything with it. Well, now we got a use for it. And dang, I did not think this grain dryer took that much propane. This is not going to do us any good right there, so we'll move the auger over to the wet corn bin and we'll start shuffling the corn over to the dryer. In farm sim terms, I think all of the grain that's in our wet bin should be able to be dried and ready for selling within about 2 days, as long as I can just keep the consistent flow of propane to corn going into the dryer. Then we can start working on the demolition of the rest of the bin site to get that construction underway. This is literally the only thing the 4030 is useful for, in my opinion. This thing is a gutless green machine. It's the only John Deere that I really just do not care for. In you go. And that's all I'm really going to be doing now for the next couple hours. So thank you guys for tuning in to this little episode on Green Valley, Nebraska. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Kind of was a little iffy because, you know, this is a field of play that I'm not too familiar with. I do know how to work on vehicles, but if someone were to tell me to go and rebuild a motor, I couldn't do it. But I hope that was just kind of an entertaining, different change-up, and I think that's going to make a really great addition to the farm with the propane truck being added. So I hope you guys can go check out the rest of the Boomstick Club for all the up-to-date content from me and the gang. You guys already know who is in it. Be sure to check out some more streams throughout the week. We'll see you later. This is The Rental Man, out.